I parked my car in the long-term lot at Toronto Pearson Airport, smiling to myself. I had flown in from Vancouver to surprise my son for his birthday. I imagined his reaction, the laugh, the hug. It was supposed to be a happy day. As I walked between rows of cars, something felt off. A gray Toyota Corolla sat near the far end, its windows fogged from the inside. I noticed movement. Curious and suddenly uneasy, I stepped closer. My breath caught in my throat. Inside the car, curled up in the back seat under a single thin blanket, was my son, Daniel. Beside him, pressed tightly against his sides, were his 6-year-old twin boys, Leo and Marcus, sleeping. In a car. In March. I tapped the window gently. Daniel jolted awake, panic flashing across his face, until he saw me. Then something else appeared, something I had never seen in my son before. Humiliation. He opened the door slowly, careful not to wake the boys. "Dad," his voice cracked, "what are you doing here?" I swallowed hard. "Daniel, what are you doing here? Where's your house? Where's Emily? Why are my grandsons sleeping in a parking lot?" He looked away. "It's complicated." "Complicated?" I snapped. "You're living in a car with children." The boys stirred. Leo rubbed his eyes and smiled when he saw me. "Grandpa?" That one word shattered me. I forced a smile. "Hey, champ, how about you and Marcus come get breakfast with Grandpa? Your dad and I need to talk." An hour later, the twins were happily drowning pancakes in syrup at Tim Hortons, while Daniel sat across from me, hollow-eyed and exhausted. "Tell me everything," I said. He took a shaky breath. "Emily left 3 months ago, but she didn't just leave, she took everything. The house, the savings, the company funds, gone. She had convinced him to sign papers, claiming they were for tax restructuring. The house went into her name alone. Days later, he came home to changed locks and a restraining order. Her lawyer claimed Daniel was unstable, dangerous. Fake texts, doctored emails, witnesses who swore he was erratic. Her parents backed every lie. The judge believed them. The business money I had invested, had been transferred into an account belonging to her father, Richard Hale, labeled as a loan. No contract, no proof. Custody? He'd lost it. Supervised visits twice a week at her parents' house. Her mother sat nearby, watching, writing notes, judging every word he spoke to his own children. I felt a familiar fire rise in my chest, the same fury I hadn't felt since my wife passed away. "This ends now," I said. "You're coming with me." That night, after the boys fell asleep in the hotel, I made calls. First to my longtime lawyer, Andrew Lynn, then to an old friend in Toronto law enforcement, Inspector Claire Donovan. Andrew didn't hesitate. "This isn't just divorce, it's financial abuse and fraud." He referred me to one of the toughest family attorneys in Ontario, Laura Bennett. Laura listened without interrupting. When Daniel finished, she leaned back. "This is a textbook case of coercive control, financial manipulation paired with parental alienation." She ordered forensic accounting, digital analysis, witness depositions. While the case moved forward, I rented a furnished apartment in Mississauga, enrolled the boys in school. Daniel found work through an old colleague who trusted him. Piece by piece, the truth surfaced. His coworkers described him as calm, reliable, never unstable. His therapist's records showed nothing but healthy stress management. The witnesses cracked under oath. And the money? A forensic accountant traced nearly $300,000 siphoned from the company, slowly, deliberately, into Emily's accounts, then into her father's account, labeled as a loan. No contract, no proof. Custody? He lost it. Daniel had legally recorded every visit. The audio told a very different story than Emily's mother's notes. The boys were happy, loving, secure. The notes? Total fiction. Laura submitted everything, to family court, to the fraud unit, to the CRA. By the time the final hearing arrived, Emily no longer looked confident. Justice Grant was meticulous and unforgiving. When Laura finished presenting the evidence, the courtroom was silent. Justice Grant didn't hesitate. Joint custody immediately. Supervision terminated. Full repayment ordered. Criminal referrals approved. Emily gasped. Her father went pale. Daniel collapsed into tears. Outside the courtroom, Leo and Marcus ran into his arms. "Daddy, are we going home?" one of them asked. "Yes," Daniel whispered. "We're going home." Months later, Emily's father was charged with fraud and tax evasion. Emily accepted a plea deal and repaid most of the money. Daniel rebuilt, this time with solid contracts and legal protection. His relationship with his sons flourished. I stayed in Toronto, bought a condo nearby. One evening, watching the boys play, Daniel said quietly, "If you hadn't shown up that day, I don't know where I'd be. You're my son. That's all there is to it." From inside the apartment, a small voice called out, "Grandpa, come play with us." I stood up, smiling. "I'm coming," I said, and I meant it in every way that mattered. The weeks that followed felt like a war fought on paper, phone calls, and sleepless nights. Laura Bennett moved fast, faster than I expected. Within days, she filed an emergency motion challenging the supervised visitation order and demanding a full forensic investigation into the company's finances. Emily's legal team responded aggressively, accusing Daniel of manipulation and claiming I was trying to buy custody. Let them try. Daniel moved into the apartment permanently with the boys. At first, Leo and Marcus thought it was temporary, another adventure. But as days turned into weeks, something changed. They slept through the night. Their teachers reported improved focus. They laughed more. Stability looks different on children. You can see it in their shoulders and how they breathe. Meanwhile, the lies started unraveling. Laura deposed Emily's witnesses one by one. Her friend, who claimed Daniel lost control at a party, admitted she hadn't actually been there. A neighbor who alleged threats confessed he never heard any words, just saw Daniel looking angry once. Looking angry is not a crime. Then came the digital forensics. An independent analyst confirmed that the threatening text messages Emily had submitted were not original screenshots. The metadata showed they were created on a laptop, not a phone. Timestamps didn't match carrier logs. Entire message threads were missing. Fabricated. When Laura presented this discovery, Emily's lawyer tried to downplay it as a technical misunderstanding. Justice Grant did not appreciate that phrasing. At the same time, the forensic accountant finished his report. What he found was devastating. Over 14 months, Emily had quietly drained money from the business in increasingly larger amounts, starting with a few $100s, then thousands, then five-figure transfers. Each time, the money moved through personal accounts before landing in her father Richard Hale's investment firm. There were no loan agreements, no repayment plans, no authorization from Daniel. This wasn't impulsive, it was methodical. In other words, planned. Laura forwarded the report to the Toronto Police Fraud Unit and the Canada Revenue Agency. That's when Emily's confidence began to crack. The next supervised visit sealed it. Daniel hugged the boys as usual. They ran to him smiling, talking over each other about school and friends. Emily's mother sat silently, scribbling notes. Later, Laura compared those notes to the audio recording. The report claimed the boys were withdrawn and Daniel was agitated. The audio proved the opposite. That document alone ended supervised visitation. 2 days later, the court granted unsupervised access pending the final hearing. For the first time in months, my son tucked his children into bed without someone watching him like a criminal. The final custody hearing arrived 6 months after I found them in that parking lot. Emily arrived with her parents and legal team, but she no longer looked certain. Her father avoided eye contact. Daniel sat beside Laura, nervous but grounded. Justice Grant listened carefully as Laura presented everything: financial fraud, fabricated evidence, false testimony, documented emotional manipulation. Then Emily took the stand. Under questioning, she contradicted herself repeatedly. She claimed Daniel approved the transfers, then admitted there was no record of approval. She insisted she feared him, yet couldn't explain why she deleted all original evidence. When asked why she never encouraged therapy if she believed Daniel was unstable, she had no answer. Silence can be louder than lies. The ruling came swiftly. Joint legal custody, equal parenting time, immediate termination of all supervision, full repayment of stolen funds, referral for criminal investigation. The gavel struck. Daniel broke down. Her father stood abruptly before being warned to sit. Daniel didn't celebrate. He just exhaled, like a man who'd been holding his breath for half a year. Outside, Leo and Marcus sprinted toward him. "Daddy!" they shouted. Daniel dropped to his knees and held them both, tears soaking their jackets. That moment made every fight worth it. 3 months later, Richard Hale was formally charged with fraud and tax evasion. Emily accepted a plea deal, repayment, probation, and a permanent mark on her record. Daniel rebuilt his company from scratch, this time with lawyers, contracts, and control. I stayed close. Family should. One night, watching the boys laugh in the living room, Daniel said quietly, "They almost convinced me I was the problem." I put a hand on his shoulder. That's what manipulation does, but truth has a way of surviving. From the other room, a small voice called out, "Grandpa, come help us!" I stood up without hesitation. "I'm coming," I said, because family doesn't look away, and we don't leave our own behind.
A year passed, and life slowly began to resemble something normal again. Not perfect, never perfect, but steady. And after what we'd been through, steady felt like a gift. Daniel's new company grew carefully this time. No shortcuts, no blind trust. Every agreement went through a lawyer. Every dollar was tracked. The scars from the past hadn't made him bitter, they'd made him precise. Leo and Marcus adjusted to the shared custody arrangement better than anyone expected. Children are resilient when they're finally given the truth. They knew where they belonged, with both parents, but never without their father. Emily, on the other hand, faded from the center of their lives. She showed up when required, stayed distracted during visits, and left early more often than not. The court records followed her everywhere, and the consequences she once thought she could avoid became permanent. Daniel never spoke badly about her to the boys, not once. "They'll figure things out on their own," he told me. "They don't need my anger added to their confusion." That's when I knew my son had truly survived. One afternoon, I watched Daniel help Marcus with a school project at the kitchen table, while Leo sat nearby drawing superheroes. Ordinary moments, ones that almost didn't happen. It hit me then how close we came to losing all of this. Later that evening, Daniel joined me on the balcony. The city lights flickered below us, familiar now. "I used to think strength meant pushing through alone," he said. "I was wrong." I nodded. "Strength is knowing when to let someone stand with you." He was quiet for a moment. "They made me doubt myself," he admitted. "For a long time, I believed them. I thought maybe I really was broken." "You weren't," I said firmly. "You were targeted." He exhaled slowly, like the weight of those words was finally lifting. Inside, laughter erupted as a tower of blocks collapsed. "Grandpa," yelled Leo, "Marcus cheated." I smiled and stood. "Sounds serious." As I walked back in, Daniel watched me with a soft expression. "You showed me what a father is," he said, "not just to his kids, but to his grown son, too." I stopped and met his eyes. That's how it works. We protect the next generation, and sometimes we protect each other. Later that night, after the boys were asleep, Daniel handed me a small framed photo. It was from the day the custody ruling came down, the three of them outside the courthouse, smiling through tears. "I want you to keep this," he said. I looked at it for a long moment. "I already have everything I need," I replied, "but I'll treasure it."
A few weeks later, Leo came home from school and announced he wanted to be a lawyer. So dads don't get tricked, he explained seriously. Daniel laughed, then wiped his eyes. Healing doesn't arrive all at once. It comes quietly, in routines, laughter, safety, and trust rebuilt piece by piece. That parking lot feels like another lifetime now, but I never forget it. I never forget the image of my son sleeping in a car, believing he had failed. Because that moment taught me something. Even the strongest people can be broken when lies are repeated long enough. And sometimes all it takes to save someone is showing up exactly when they think no one will. Family isn't perfect. It isn't always gentle. But when it matters most, it stands firm. And we stood.